One of the worst things you can do to somebody who's going through a difficult time is say, hey, why don't we talk about it? Because when somebody is suffering, when somebody's going through pain, what is talking about that pain going to do? That's going to create rumination, either consciously or subconsciously. That's going to deepen the pain. That's going to make things worse. That's what language does, because language reinforces the reality that we're experiencing, the reality that we have within ourselves. The Reishis Chachma says when somebody's angry, don't talk about the anger at that moment. Right? Pirkei Avos says when somebody's deceased is in front of them, don't try to comfort them at that moment. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be supportive to somebody who is suffering, and you definitely should empathize with somebody who's suffering. But you don't have to get them to elaborate on the pain that they're in. When somebody talks about pain, they feel pain more. When somebody talks about hope, they feel more hope. And having a conversation about that can be very helpful. I was once counseling a couple, and the truth is I do this all the time when I counsel couples. I say, so what are your best hopes from our discussion? And sometimes they'll say, well, look, this is the issues we're going through and we're fighting about this and that. And I'll say, look, that must be really difficult and really uncomfortable. And I'm sorry that you felt hurt when this and this happened. But if this was a useful discussion and you walked out of here and things were like super successful, how would you know? Like, what can you dream for? What are your best hopes? And when they have a conversation about what they hope for, it gets reinforced. When you talk about problems, and I'm not saying that we should be problem phobic and that we should be afraid of listening to people's problems. No, we should be very empathetic. But if we talk too much about problems, we reinforce problematic behavior. When we talk more about hope, we reinforce hopeful behavior. Essentially, people have within themselves the ability to shine, the ability to persevere. And we see this, by the way, in the Parsha of Amalek, the Amalekites trying to kill us in the Bible, in the Torah. This unprovoked attack against our identity. Right? Sometimes we feel like our positive identity, the identity we're most proud of, the version of ourselves that we want to share with others, gets robbed. And you can call this depression, anxiety, trauma. It could be for external causes as well. But sometimes we feel that our identity is being robbed. So the Torah says you got to fight Amalek. You got to fight this negative force within you. And how do we do that? Moshe Rabbeinu chooses people to fight this war. If you were chosen by Moshe Rabbeinu, if you were chosen by Moses to fight a war, what quality would you want to believe that you had that you're worth being chosen by Moses? Think about that. What makes you so special that you're chosen by Moses? Try to identify with that quality. I want you to imagine this right now as you're watching this video. Moshe Rabbeinu chooses you to fight the battle of God, to protect the Jewish people. You have a soul within yourself that needs to be protected. And if Moshe Rabbeinu chose you, what do you think that quality would be? Write it in the comment section as well. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. The Torah tells us that at this battle, Moshe Rabbeinu would raise his hands. And when his hands were up, the battle was successful. And when his hands were down, they were losing the battle. It says, Kasher Yorim es Yadoi, they were successful. When he lifted his hands, they were successful. They were winning. They were victorious. Kasher Hiniach es Yadoi, when his hands were down, they were not successful. Why? What is significant about Moshe Rabbeinu lifting up his hands, giving the Jewish people the ability to fight? So Rashi interprets it as a sign. He's reminding us, look to the heavens, understand where your success comes from. But I want to share with you an alternate interpretation from Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Barditchev. The Kedushas Levi, he explains that Yad, the hand, is a euphemism for strength. The hand of God, like the Rambam tells us, when it says the hand of God, it's an anthropomorphic metaphor. Not that God actually has a hand, because God is not a human being. God is the creator of human beings, but God is way beyond that and is not limited to a specific form. When the Torah says the hand of God, it means the strength. In this case also, when Moshe Rabbeinu lifts up his hand, when you have strength, and like Moshe Rabbeinu, you take advantage of it, you lift it up, you take that strength within you that God has given you to persevere, to shine, and to fight, and to win, and to be the best version of yourself, and to show up in the way that you're most proud of, the way that God is most proud of. You take your hand and you lift it up. You actually take advantage of it. You take the strength that God has given you within. You find it and you take advantage of it. You can be very successful. But if you neglect it, you just put it down. You put down your strength and you wallow in your pain and you just want to talk about problems but not actually talk about the hope that you have, the strength that God has given you. It's very difficult to win Amalek. But friends, we can win this Amalek. Amalek does not have to rob us or abduct us of our self-worth, abduct us of the value that we have, the God-given value that we have. God has given us this value and we can pick it up. And the very first step is to notice it. And it's ironic, but noticing the value God has given us within ourselves, it's ironic, but it requires a lot of humility, because our self-made worth has its limitations and we could put doubts on it. But the God-given worth that we have takes a lot of humility to step aside and say, I know it's there. Friends, you got this. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.